Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Amazing Race Rewind podcast, the podcast where we rewind back in time to watch the earliest seasons of the Amazing Race for the first time. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Jill.
And we're here to talk about the finale of season 3. We have arrived at the finish line for part 2 of episode 11.
We made it. It was a very, I don't know, like, quick moment of season retrospective here. This season, for some reason, has felt both incredibly short and insanely long. I can't believe that this is the end, but it also feels as though September, when we started season 3, was so long ago, and I can't remember anything that I was doing or that was happening when we did the first episode of the podcast for season 3.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird way to interact with these seasons, to watch them for the first time through the lens of knowing you're going to be talking about it. But then also, like, I feel the way most people would watch this would be it wouldn't take them however long, 5 months, or how long did it take us, 4 months to get through a season of The Amazing Race.
I also think too, like, at its core, at its heart, all reality TV show is meant to just kind of shut your brain off. And we're doing the exact opposite. Like, we were talking about this earlier in the context of a couple other things as well, but just saying how it is harder for us to sometimes come to our computers to watch these because it like, as much as we enjoy it, it's not a relaxing experience. You're picking things apart, you're looking for details, you're trying to think of how to make commentary. You know, it's not a shut my brain off and watch this episode.
Yeah, but like it's an enjoyable experience. We like it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not complaining.
We're not complaining. It's just a different way to consume reality TV than one is used to.
Well, and I think too, it's like something that I often think about is, like, for example, when we spend most of December away and we're not posting anything. Not that we have this mass audience, you know, and millions of subscribers who are like, where are they? What are they doing? But for the, like, maybe 10 of you that are incredibly loyal, you know, we're not posting. It's not that we don't want to or that we're growing out of this.
Yeah. But yeah, again, looking back on season 3, it is the most well-produced, well-designed, probably best characters. I guess, well, the teams we ended up with are the best characters. There were a couple duds in this cast, but I think overall the production team really stepped it up, and this is a really great season. However, the winners probably tainted the season for a few people.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it yet. Well, they already know that Tyrion didn't win.
Okay.
Come on, Andrew.
Okay. Well, I think for the 10 of you who may be listening, they've probably already seen this before. Otherwise, I don't know why they'd be tuning in.
Let us know.
Unless they just like it.
You really you guys need to talk to us. Like, you know, I'm not getting mad. I'm just saying we love kind of incorporating requests, or, you know, if you want to send in questions about the race or the podcast, we would genuinely love getting these. Like, every time we get an email, it becomes a stop and drop. Like, sometimes we've FaceTimed each other before just to read emails. We like it. It is a big thing. And on that note too, if there's any other type of media or podcast you would like to see us do, we're also open to that. I know it's so funny because we're saying how we don't have time for this, but
we do. But we do. That's the thing.
You make time. What is it, like that saying or something? You make time in life for the things you care about.
And this is what we care about. So amazingracerewind@gmail.com. Write that down. Put it in the address line of your next email and let us know what you're thinking.
Exactly.
Anyway. We are starting off here very tense. Terry and Ian, 5:35 a.m. And they're told to find a route marker at the Buddhist feet at Temple of Kwan Min. So they do this, and then
this went by really quick. There wasn't really much that happened here. They're still in Vietnam. They go to this statue of Buddha, and then the clue is just essentially go to Hawaii, which it's weird how they pick these like Hawaii and Alaska always for these last legs. It's so funny. I don't know. Like, maybe because they want a more exotic landscape and like tropical or tundra. Like, I get it, but and they want to be back on American soil, but I don't know.
Yeah, because you can go on American soil, fine by me. But why do we have to do Hawaii 2 seasons in a row? The United States of America is a diverse country and has a lot going on.
I know, like, we started in the Florida?
Everglades.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they really haven't visited much. Or they could even do, like, Central America, which they haven't done before.
I know. Also, the U.S. does have a couple, whatever they called, like, independent colony states. Like, Puerto Rico is technically under the U.S. It's like the U.S. dollar is used there, right? And stuff.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, hello,
Let's diversify. But, I mean, despite that, they did do a good job this season with their locations. We're just kind of nagging on them going to Hawaii for the second finale in a row.
We don't want predictable things. It's the finale. Go big or go home.
Yeah. And, like, also going from Southeast Asia to more tropical, really. So we're going to Hawaii, and the teams are going to get a blessing from Kahuna, which to get to the airport, they have to take a 17-hour train ride. What's with these long train rides in Vietnam?
I guess it's an efficient way of travel, and there's only so many because here they have to go to Hanoi, and they have to book the plane tickets out of Hanoi from a travel agency, which that's a whole thing we'll talk about. But I guess they have cool locations that aren't close to airports, and they need to get them there, and train isn't there. I mean, that's like you and I too. We're not really used to train as a mode of transport. Like you and I, that's kind of a North American thing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like for us, like road trips, like 17-hour road trips, we wouldn't bat an eye at as much as a 17-hour train, purely because of mode of transport.
I guess, yeah, looking at the geography of Vietnam as a country, I guess it kind of like wraps around things, and there's like a lot of ocean there, so it's not as easy as just like taking a straight path.
No, exactly. And also, like, you're not going to be at such high speeds when you're on cliffs or mountains or beside the water.
Yeah. So the thing is with this airport, which you've never seen before, a little detail is that you have to purchase your airline tickets before entering the airport. So the teams have to go to travel agencies first.
you need a ticket to be admitted to the airport. Like, you can't show up to buy your ticket. You have to be a ticket holder to enter the airport.
Yeah, which is really unheard of, but I guess go off for this airport.
It makes
wanting
sense,
to have, yeah, but not really. I was going to say not great for the Amazing Race, but I guess it is, because we do get a little bit of drama at this travel agency.
Do you want to explain this?
Yeah. So Terry and Ian are the first to arrive at this travel agency, and Ian is being so overbearing, and he's getting behind the counter, and he's being very demanding. His language is coming off as rude, and Terry's kind of saying he doesn't realize that he's coming off as rude, but he really is. And I just felt bad for this poor employee who's once again having to deal. Well, not that this singular employee has dealt with this before, but I'm just speaking for all employees
that come into
the Amazing to come into contact with people from the Amazing Race.
It's never. I just can't imagine, like, you're doing your mundane day-to-day job and people come in all of a sudden demanding things at like a rapid fire rate as if it's life and death.
Well, it was. And Ken and Gerard pull up and they're trying to get him to stop. They're trying to get him to calm down, to maybe get Ken to deal with it because Ken's a little bit more personable. But Ian doesn't want to have it. He says before that they were holding hands and they were having such a great time until Ken and Gerard showed up, and then it was mayhem. Yeah,
I mean, ultimately they get their tickets, but it's a long drawn out sequence of them just kind of trying to, like, there's nothing explosive. It is a like decently productive conversation, but it just, you feel the tension of it being the last leg.
There's a lot of tension in the room.
Like, you could tell it's the last leg.
Bursting at the walls. And it's kind of awkward to see Ken lecturing Ian on this, saying that he's like intimidating the employees and being rude. But Ken was not lying.
No.
So both teams do get their tickets, and they are going to be going through Japan to Honolulu. And there's a fun clip of Ken and Gerard when they're leaving this travel agency, when they're like, do we have an alliance with Terry and Ian? And the other one goes, "Oh my god, we have an alliance with Terry and Ian."
I love that.
Which is
They are just such a good team.
they were really built for a show like this. They're Kevin and Drew, but more lighthearted, I would say, and maybe a little bit more appropriate.
Kevin and Drew, who are slightly better at playing the cameras.
Yes. I think Kevin and Drew were just a little bit more brash.
Like, we've talked about the Kevin and Drew show. Where's the Ken and Gerard show?
We need the Ken and Gerard show. Yeah, the Kevin and Drew show, that was a whole can of worms.
I didn't even watch it.
Yeah, neither did I. Barely watched it. But Flo and Zach show up later, and Flo is saying she's in a different state of mind now. The end is near. She's ready to complete the race and will never speak of quitting again. Which is kind of ironic considering only a mere few minutes later in the episode she's speaking of booking a flight home. So Flo and Zach, what happens is they go to the same travel agency, and the thing is that they only have business class left and not economy. And as we know, on The Amazing Race, the teams can only travel economy.
Or they can travel in business as long as they've paid an economy price. That's what it was as of season 1. I don't know if that's changed.
Yeah. I think it's probably about the same. I don't know what the exact details are, but there's an interesting shot, I guess, with Flo. She's like, her back is towards the counter and her eyes are closed. She's doing like her deep breathing, box breathing exercise to try and calm herself down, with Zach dealing with it in the back.
Do what you gotta do.
And she says, "Why us? Like, why would this happen to us?" And she says, "If we can't get this flight, I want you to just get us a flight to JFK. I'm not joking."
And I mean, they end up... I kind of lost the plot here. Because they do end up booking the same flight pattern as the other two teams. But where you're talking about the business thing, that's only from Japan to Honolulu that they're in business. So from Hanoi to Japan, they're in economy. So that flight is fine. So they just decide to book that route, but with the Japan to Honolulu being in business. But then the minute they leave the travel agency, they're like, that was such a stupid idea. That was such a bad idea. What are we doing?
So I think what they did was they bought it because they knew that that was their only option to do business class. And their plan was to, once they arrived at the airport, was to try and exchange their business class tickets for economy.
But they don't even wait that long. They're on the train and Zach is asking people for cell phones and they end up switching it.
Yeah, which was a very good move to do. I guess it was their only option, but it was really great that they were able to pull this off. But like I think this is probably just from the anxiety of having to sit on a train for 17 hours with plane tickets for seats that they can't use.
Exactly.
So I guess like you're sitting there for 17 hours, you might as well try and do something.
Be productive, exactly.
But this was very good of Zach being able to borrow a stranger's phone on the train and call the airline and be able to make this transaction of sorts to exchange their tickets. And not only that, he's able to find a different flight that's even better than Ken and Gerard and Ian and Terry's.
It leaves slightly earlier.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, I was a little bit upset because Zach goes to the hotel. He has the tickets. The downside for having the booking and all the tickets to be so open-ended these early seasons is that the last leg or the finale can literally just be decided upon who has better plane tickets, which is really frustrating to see. Because so much is up in the air. One team could swoop in at the end and get much better flights, and you can't blame the other teams for not getting.
It's not, it's that thing we've talked about before. It's not dependent on skill. It's just luck.
Yes. I mean, it is interesting, but it also is frustrating to watch and something that feels broken about the way the game is at this certain point in time.
Yeah, definitely.
So all teams are on the same flight to Tokyo, but it's the flight to Honolulu that's earlier for Flo and Zach. So here, Ken and Gerard, I guess they catch wind that Flo and Zach are on an earlier flight. And they're trying to actively look for an earlier flight, and they're able to do so. So this strands
Terry and Ian.
But
what's ironic about this is Flo and Zach and Ken and Gerard's flight ends up getting delayed. So
Yes.
Terry and Ian actually end up getting out earlier. Anyway, it's only about a 15-minute difference. Like, it really doesn't
Which
matter.
to that, clapping like a seal, cheering, best day of my life. I'm so glad that happened. That we're RRR. Yeah, it was great for us
Isn't that
to not have a team.
wasn't that a meme or not a meme? Like,
Yeah, I know
on
what you're
TikTok
talking about.
after the Oscars last year. Yeah.
Anyway. So we're clapping like a seal at their flight being delayed, and everybody's pretty much arriving in Honolulu at the same time.
Yes. Like we said, Terry and Ian only about 15 minutes ahead, and when they get to Honolulu, they are self-driving, as one would say, and they get Mustangs or something. Why did I pronounce that so weird? Mustangs?
They get the roof down, they have the wind in their hair. And Flo has a quote here. She's saying, "Let's push it, Zach. Let's try and not go driving Miss Daisy here." Which is a good quote.
She's definitely rejuvenated and able to kind of, give some substance to the show. Again.
Yes. So they're driving 20 miles to receive a blessing from traditional Hawaiian priests known as a kahuna. And they kind of have this stereotypical surfer music in Hawaii going on in the back.
Like what you would hear in SpongeBob.
Yeah, I really love the musical choices on this season. I guess for the whole show, like if you just pay attention to the music they choose, it can be really quite comical at times.
Well, because they just play the most stereotypical music for every country.
For every country. Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's borderline offensive.
No, definitely.
But I will add to the blessing they need to receive from the kahuna opens at 10 a.m. So that's another equalizing point for all of them. So they're all there waiting.
Yes. Yeah, so Flo and Zach and Ken and Gerard park at the same time. Flo goes up to Ken and she goes, "I'm so hungry." And then Ken clocks her and says, "All right, you gotta stop whining. It's too early."
Like, it's nice that they have decent camaraderie.
Yes. So all teams are sitting there, and so it's 10 a.m. They're all sitting there and they're drinking this potion of sorts, it's a really nice moment where I always love when they have these tasks where all the teams can be together and just like share a moment and just like appreciate where they are for a second.
Yeah.
And that's what this was. So once they do that, they're told to travel to Kauai. How do you say it? Kauai? Kauai. A different island, find a ranch gate, and follow some arrows into the woods to find their next clue.
Yes, so this is another quick hop over the islands on a plane, which none of them seem to struggle with. I wouldn't imagine so. There's probably a bunch of flights between all the islands every day. But when they get there, Flo, I think, kind of freaks out a little bit because they have to put on gear. And I think she's thinking the worst. Like, another...
She's thinking,
was it
we're back in Scotland.
Was it her who freaked out at the...
I think that was either Heather or Eve.
Yeah, it was one of them.
Freaking out at the skydiving. But Flo famously had a freak out over the rappelling task in Scotland.
Yes.
Where she like made it down a little bit, and then she was like had a meltdown, and then she had to like get helped back up, and then they ended up walking instead.
Yep.
Which was really not great. But something about this final leg is all the traveling they have to do. It's like, why are we going to Hawaii only to go to 2 different islands on Hawaii and then to go to Seattle?
Yeah, the planning.
Like, why can't we just do the whole thing in Seattle or the whole thing in Hawaii or whatever? Like, I don't like when they split up the locations within one leg, especially when it's the finale, because then that just leaves more room for disparity within the flights and for there to be gaps with that.
I know. I'm interested to see if that's something they'll continue trying to, or not continue, but start trying to fix a bit.
Yeah. But I mean, it hasn't really caused them an issue so far because all 3 finales have been quite close.
Well, Guido's.
Okay, well, I'm talking about between Robin Brennan and Frank and Margarita. Remember when they were running to the train and like the whole taxi scene with Frank trying to tell the cab driver where to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Guidos were long gone. But okay, so
anyway,
Ken and Gerard arrive at the ranch gate first, and they get some harnesses on, and we learn that this is a detour here.
Quick drop or slow walk, which we're not going to talk about it.
In the book. The oldest detour in the book, tried and true.
And the drop isn't even that bad. Like, I looked at that and I thought I would have no issue doing that.
And the thing is, it's like a zip line, really, where you get released at the bottom.
Yeah, it's at this waterfall, and slow walk is you walk down to the base of waterfall to get the clue. It takes a long time, blah, blah, blah. Quick drop, it's, sort of a zip line that then drops you into the water, and then you go and grab
You
the
swim.
clue. It looks fun.
Yeah. So they do it. It's not much to report on once again. Ken and Gerard complete it first, and they are told to fly to Seattle, Washington, and go to Cary Park in downtown Seattle.
And Seattle is the final destination. Meanwhile, Ian and Terry are lost trying to find this place.
Yes. Okay, so Flo and Zach finished the detour second, and they're in great spirits upon completing this, which is a complete 180 from the past couple of legs where it's just been complete misery.
Genuinely.
Ian is terrified of doing the detour, but he does it anyway.
And then he says he would do it again.
He would do it again. And, I mean, considering the other heights tasks, I don't know why this was such an issue.
Like I said, this one, to me, I looked at that, I thought that's not a big deal at all.
Yeah. Terry and Ian are a little bit down here, and I think it kind of speaks to their team that their mood is really determined by their performance or by their placement within the race.
But that would be, like, to me, that's not uncommon.
I don't think that's uncommon either, but I think you see a team like Ken and Gerard, I feel like they were consistent throughout, regardless of where they are in the pack.
No, that's fair.
Whereas I think Terry and Ian are a little bit more, they fluctuate a lot more with their moods and their attitudes.
That's fair.
So Ian and Terry, everybody's at the airport, and we're in good spirits. It's back to being a lighthearted and fun season, which is something that we talked about earlier in this season of just how fun and lighthearted it was, as opposed to last season with all the venom that was there.
Last season's finale was hard to watch.
Yeah, I think we were kind of eating our words because this did turn into not so lighthearted the past few episodes.
That's true. But ultimately at the end here, it's not, the screaming that was last season's finale.
Yes. Okay, so we arrive in Seattle and the energy is high. This is it. This is when you really start to feel the adrenaline pumping through your veins. We're on our way to Cary Park near downtown Seattle. And I noted that Flo here, she seems like she's all dressed up here. Was she wearing makeup? It seemed like she was like ready for a glamour shot at the finish line.
I honestly wasn't looking, couldn't tell you.
Okay, well, she seemed quite dressed up. So yeah, teams are rushing to Cary Park. Flo and Zach arrive first, just before Ken and Gerard there. And they're told to go to the International Fountain by the Seattle Space Needle, and they have to run there.
So it's a classic abandon your taxis, run down a mountainous city, and find a location.
Yeah, which I love when they make teams run to a location. It makes it for so much more higher stakes. They have to navigate so much more than taking a cab. And they did this, especially on a finale. They did this last finale too, and that made it for being very exciting. Not just like at the end, but they had to run around San Francisco quite a lot, I remember.
Yeah, to me that was almost too much.
But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Also, with the tasks for the finales, like whenever they arrive to their final city, they never really have to do a task. I mean, they had a roadblock here at the end, but it was kind of a breeze, which we'll get to. But it's always just go to this place and go to this place and go to this place.
Yeah.
Which I don't really appreciate. And that we didn't have I guess we did have a detour. Yeah, okay, scratch that.
They don't seem to, I mean, the thing is, the international fountain that they need to find is right by the Space Needle, which is visible everywhere. So they don't really have any trouble finding it. They all get the clue, and then they're told to go to Lincoln Park, which is where the roadblock is.
Yes. And the only thing with the running is that it doesn't really play to Terry and Ian's strengths. It definitely favors teams like Flo and Zach, who are younger and a little bit more fit. But yeah, so they make it to Lincoln Park. Ken and Gerard were actually the first to get to the International Fountain, followed by Terry and Ian. And Flo and Zach actually made it to the fountain in last.
But then somehow get to...
Yeah. And Flo was upset with Zach because he was going like directly to the needle, but she was like, well, it's not actually right at the needle. It's like a little bit away from the needle. And one thing about Flo is that when she gets upset with Zach, she just like completely disengages with everything and leaves him to do it on his own.
Yeah.
So Ken and Gerard, they're struggling to get a taxi. Despite being the first to leave the fountain, they're last to get a cab. So they're in last going to The roadblock, Ian says that, quote, his shins are all done. And Flo and Zach actually arrived first at the roadblock here.
Yeah, and the roadblock is... I didn't quite understand how they're supposed to do it, but it's essentially a totem pole with rotating carvings and faces on it, and they have to get it in the correct order, and then a box at the bottom will open with their clue. So it's not... like, none of them struggled.
No, it was quite easy. So this is the first ever kind of meta task, I guess, where they have to recall things that have happened previously in the race, which has become a staple for our finale episodes, which is a task that I quite enjoy. Although this was a quite easy variation of it. So, yeah, they had to spin animal faces in the order in which they appeared in the race. So I guess, like, you could say, okay, so the first one's a donkey, because episode 1, they had the donkey cart task. And then so on and so forth with all the other animals. And then they have a cool little mechanism that when the mouth opens at the bottom to give them their final clue.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed that. And I think doing a memory task where the teams kind of like recall things, although they didn't really pay much attention to it in the episode, or like draw attention to it, I mean. I think it's a good way to close off the race, to kind of have like a full circle moment where they bring in past aspects.
It is, and like you said, it's become a staple.
Yeah, which is what we like to see on this podcast. We like to see the origins of our favorite tasks, of what
Conventions
shaped
and
the
stuff.
the modern version of this show.
Exactly.
So,
but as we kind of
go.
said, no one struggles, and so everyone leaves this basically in the order that they came.
Yeah.
So Flo and Zach
gets it first, and they're told to go to. I don't have the name of the park.
Don't
where the
either.
final pit stop is.
I don't.
Okay, it was at Gasworks Park.
Okay.
Okay.
So they are en route to Gasworks Park, and yeah, I know in the past that these scenes where all the teams are there and Phil's there and they're running up to the final pit stop make you emotional. How did this one make you feel?
Okay, so it's the big scene of where everybody's racing to the final pit stop. Ken and Gerard is giving their cab driver all of their money. He's cutting corners. It's very intense, and a sinking feeling enters my chest as Flo and Zach are in the lead. And so, regardless of who the team is, I think something about Amazing Race finales just like gets me a little bit. There were chills. It was not. There wasn't emotion like there has been in the past.
Right.
Because it was Flo and Zach, and I really, really, really didn't want them to win. And I guess we can. Do you want to just talk about them as winners now?
I think so. Well, it's just yeah. Spoiler alert: Flo and Zach come in first. Terry and Ian aren't too far behind them. I don't think. Like only a couple minutes behind them, and it seems like Ken and Gerard were a little bit further behind, but still like not long at all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But the thing
Flo and
was,
Zach are the official. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say the thing was is that Flo and Zach thought that Ken and Gerard were ahead of them because they hadn't seen them at the roadblock. So they thought that they were in second, and they were like content with that. That was fine. But they pull up. They are the official winners of The Amazing Race Season 3. To the dismay of
Many.
Probably all viewers. Let's see, how many people viewed this episode?
And I just want to add too, like, I think I just feel like I wouldn't have had as much of an issue with it if Flo hadn't talked about quitting so much. Because you have this team who like wasn't in it all the time 100%, like at one point didn't really care whether they were there or not. And yes, like a lot of it was due to the fact that she was not in a good position to run the race. But at the same time, it would have been nicer to see someone who was like always on the ball, 100% win. Zach, I don't want to say Zach deserved it more, but like he definitely did more of the work sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of a bittersweet finish because it's like, okay, Zach went through so much and he really deserves it, but also watching this show, you don't want Flo to win, and they kind of edit it that way to make it like that, which is curious for them to do that, because you would think that they would want their viewers to be satisfied with the ending.
Yeah.
But I think the vast majority of the 10 million viewers, because that's how many people tuned into this episode, were upset at this conclusion. And just on Flo and Zach as winners, well, first of all, congratulations to Flo for being the first female winner
Yeah, exactly.
of the Amazing Race in history, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself. But if we compare them to season 1 and 2 winners, Chris and Alex and Robin Brennan, they were really quite unproblematic. They just kind of did their thing, stayed in their lane. Whereas this team made a lot more waves and were a lot more controversial. And I think it probably did good for the franchise, because I think it probably got a lot more buzz around the series having like such a controversial winner, and that it like showed that not just one archetype of a team could win. Because I think if the twins had won, I think that we would have been sighing. We would not have been happy. But I think ultimately it was good for the show, although people were probably quite displeased about it at the time. They were not, as we said, clapping like seals. RRR.
Nar, nar, nar.
Yeah, because they're also from Australia.
Exactly.
All 10 million American viewers, yeah. I had one quote that I missed that Ken and Gerard said to their cab driver. It's, quote, "I don't want you to break the law, but if you see a red light, go right through it." And we see Flo apologizing to Zach for being a pain the entire trip. She's kind of praising him, saying that he's a really good partner. And Zach says that she was great too, which I don't know how genuine that was. But there really is no thrill to me like watching the race to the final pit stop on The Amazing Race. Like it's a thrilling experience.
It is.
We see Flo and Zach round the corner. They reach the mat. I was very salty. Terry and Ian pull up and they're in second. And Ken and Gerard pull up. And Ken and Gerard, full transparency, when they pulled up, they made me tear up. They did.
Aww.
This is the only show that has this effect. This only piece of media that has this effect on me, which is so bizarre. But they have a quote there that's saying, "Seeing all the teams cheering for us, I forgot we didn't win the $1 million. I was so happy."
That's just golden.
They're in third, but they're feeling good.
Third in the race, first in our hearts.
And you know what? Even if Terry and Ian would have won, I think that would have been a crazy finish to the season and a crazy winners to have.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have been upset, but it would have been just interesting.
It would have been very interesting. And if I were Terry and Ian and Ken and Gerard, I would be very salty if I saw that Flo and Zach had beaten us. Considering all the threats to quit and like the utter just like giving up. If I were the other teams, I would not be very happy about it.
I feel though that like, even if that's what you feel, that sets in after. Like I think you're running off the adrenaline high of getting to the match. Like you've just completed this insane month-long trip around the world.
And finishing this experience and like seeing all the teams there was probably an experience also. But yeah, that is the conclusion of the season.
We save a lot of the like final impressions and stuff, or like favorites for the deep dive. But I guess we can just do a general final impression.
Flo and Zach winning again is probably quite a testament to reality TV and its genuineness. Because like I think if you were to script it, they would not make Flo and Zach win. Like if it was rigged, they would not rig it to have Flo and Zach win, because I don't think they would want that outcome.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
They're probably a nightmare for the producers to work with. Also, I mean Flo at least, because I can't imagine being a cameraman for that team.
I mean, I think it's just hard because, you know, it's this individual's decision whether they stay in this or not. You can't force them to do anything. You're doing your job. Like this is what you're paid to do, is to film this person. But at the same time, this is someone going through, like, they're just exhausted.
Yeah, but I'm just having to like sit there idly while this like whole thing is going on between them. Would be quite difficult. But that's the season. Quite an interesting pair of winners we have here. Interesting conclusion, but overall, great season, would you say?
I would say, and I'm really looking forward to the deep dive.
Yes. Not to give too much away from the deep dive, but I have a question for you. How would you rank the seasons right now? Best to worst. Season 1, 2, 3.
Best to worst, probably 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Not saying anything against season 2 or 1, but it's just they're getting better at making the media. Like, they're getting better at making entertainment, and this shows being more refined.
Right. Is that like, would you say that's your personal opinion, or would you just say like that's more objective?
I think both. I don't know. What about you?
Okay, for me, I think it's probably a 1, 3, 2.
That's fair.
Yeah, because I really, really enjoyed season 1 and just the novelty of it and how new it was.
That's true, yeah.
And the kind of experimental documentary style feel of it. Season 3 was a lot more fun. We had a lot more interesting characters, but the whole flow thing tainted it for me. However, I do think it would be different for me on a rewatch, like I've said before. And then season 2 was just very negative and toxic. That's not to say there weren't great moments, which there were. Danny and Oswald were light, but the final 3 was much more boring for season 2. Like, Blake and Paige were good, but they didn't really provide much. Taryn and Will provided a lot, but at what cost? And Chris and Alex, they had their little moments, but they were no Ken and Gerard or Terry and Ian.
No, that's fair. Like, I see your point. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just, yeah.
So yes, last kind of closing quotes here from Flo and Zach. They're saying that the romance thing didn't really work out. I think we're okay with that. And I feel really good about our relationship. That's how they say. That's what Zach said. And what I wrote after I watched this, I said, if I were him, I don't think I'd speak to her ever again. I think I would be so upset. Like, I don't think I would be able to deal with her. I would be happy to win, but I think I wouldn't be able to enjoy it considering all that had happened to me.
Right.
But from what I've gathered from the deep dive so far, as we've known before, they don't show the whole story. Flo has talked about how her and Zach actually had a lot of really great moments, a lot of really bonding moments, how they were like giving pep talks to each other. So yeah, what we see is not always the full picture, which we know already, but we will fully dive deep in the deep dive of the Marianas Trench of season 3.
Dive deep in the deep dive of the Marianas Trench.
Yeah. It goes deep. It's the Marianas Trench of season 3. We're using the Wayback Machine. We got screenshots of the old CBS website. We're reading interviews. We're here to deliver what only we can. Nobody else can do this. Only us.
Exactly. And if you have any material you'd like to send us, amazingracerewind@gmail.com or over Instagram @amazingracerewind. We're always happy to review whatever you guys send us.
Yes, and we are looking forward to moving on to season 4, which I've heard mixed reviews about.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but we'll see. But we have to get the deep dive done first. But in the meantime, yeah, send us an email, follow us on Instagram, rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. 5 stars, help us out. And that's all for us in this moment, in this episode, in this season, until the deep dive.
Yep. Bye, guys.
See ya.